Predicting the path ahead has become nearly impossible, but we can speculate about the size and scale of the economic shock. Economic problems are now spreading as fast as COVID-19 itself. Social distancing, intended to physically disrupt the spread, has affected the flow of goods and people, and it's in the process of delivering a global recession. We can expect a sharp recession. The question isn't if a recession is coming. The question is how bad it will be. We don't have a precedent. We don't know how long it will take. The extent of the downturn depends on the development of the epidemic. In a regular recession, economic activity falls. A normal recession is not so bad, but at the moment we have a very different situation. It's a collapse in both demand and supply because we can no longer produce output, and the supply chain has been crushed by the coronavirus. This means that people is losing their jobs. Therefore, demand falls as well, and people can no longer fulfill their needs to pay their mortgages or their rents. But how will the pandemic affect the economic of Mexico and the US? Amid the COVID-19 pandemic, the United States, Mexico, and Canada have agreed to extend border restrictions between their countries. All but essential crossings have been banned now since mid-March, and it's having an impact in both sides of the border. There are many Mexican economic migrants with family back home who depend on them. Mexico depends heavily on remittances of the US. In fact, remittances of dollars are one of Mexico's major economic drivers. Totaling more than $36 billion last year, US dollars sent south of the border account for roughly 3% of Mexico's gross domestic product. With millions losing their jobs every day due to the pandemic, this income is now at risk. All of this without taking into consideration all the lost jobs in Mexico. But Mexico is not the only one that will be affected by the pandemic. Take a look at China. Since April, factories are up and running, classrooms are full, restaurants are open, but the economy has not returned to normal. In fact, it is operating at around 90% of usual levels. And as lockdowns ease elsewhere, this 90% economy will be what the rest of the world has to look forward to. Regardless of how countries have dealt with the pandemic, it is becoming clear that once businesses have to operate with social distancing in place, the global economy can be expected to shrink by about 10%. This missing 10% will mean life will feel far from normal. What is mainly in the missing 10% is stuff that it's hard to do if you are trying to social distance. Things like restaurants, hotels, theaters, and cinemas. Crucially, all the ways in which people tend to have fun. There's a world where you work and then, as soon as the day is over, you immediately have to get back to your house as fast as possible. It wouldn't be surprising if we think we had gone through the worst of it. We end the lockdown and then actually things start to get even worse than we had expected. Key economic factors already indicate that the world is facing a prolonged recession. Already, unemployment in America is at its highest rate since the Great Depression. The kind of jobs that won't exist at all or in much reduced numbers will be the kind of jobs that are typically done by people who are paid less. Jobs that are done by women and jobs that are done by ethnic minorities more commonly. So we could expect unemployment to be really concentrated in certain groups of the population. We are still uncertain about what will happen. Each country's response will be different. The only certainty is that the longer we all have to wait for a vaccine to be developed and distributed, or at least an effective treatment is found, the more pronounced the effect of this 90% economy will be.